Great. So welcome everybody. Welcome Stephan for another session of the 37 practices of a Bodhisattva. And please begin.
Yes. So we are reaching a different theme in the text. So the next verses, 6 verses, are about Lojong. Lo is sometimes translated as mind, but maybe here it's good to translate it as attitude. Jong is training or transformation. So in the next verses, we explore the possibility of changing and transforming our attitude to certain situations. In particular here, situations which trigger our reactivity. So the Lojong teachings are based on an understanding of emptiness, that the things which are happening in our life don't have any meaning from their own side, but that the meaning giving is something we do. And in these different situations, we start to contemplate, can I relate to what is happening in my life in a way that it supports my awakening, my love, my compassion, my kindness. So this is a very important key, very empowering key in our life to start to understand that situations, relationships, what is happening in our life doesn't mean anything. It's us who project the story. It's us who are called for giving the meaning. And that is an amazing freedom we have. And one of the reactions in these different scenarios Tongme Sangpo will present us in the next verses, one of the possible reaction there is anger. So what I want to talk about today is anger. I guess many of us have received teachings in the Buddhist context where anger has a bad reputation. You know, something which is something we need to apply antidotes to. You know, so a big troublemaker. But here in this text, anger is looked upon more from a tantric perspective. So seeing that anger is in itself just an energy, and that all the so-called afflictions, that they have a wisdom aspect. And in the case of anger, that's clarity. So after our first meditation, I want to present you with the first scenario of Tongme Sangpo, and that is when everything is stolen from you. Yeah. When people steal things from you. So how can we respond to a situation like that aligned with our Bodhisattva attitude, with our Bodhisattva compass? So instead of responding to this situation of someone is stealing from you in a way which would just create causes for having similar experience again in the future, to take a moment of being a victim of someone stealing from you as an invitation to grow up, to wake up, to respond to that situation so that it leads into liberation, into freedom, into awakening. But before that, we just start with arriving in a simple just sitting. And I want to bring into our first meditation a quote from Ken MacLeod. This is from his commentary on verse 12. So that's the one we are looking at today. All that you have is what you experience right now. All what you have is what you experience right now. That and only that is yours. Everything else is an idea, a story, an interpretation, a dream. So let's bring that into our meditation. Present moment awareness. And I invite you to adjust your posture, to take your seat. And again, in that taking your seat as a Bodhisattva baby, you do so with the confidence that awake awareness is already available. Buddha nature is already available. And you're sitting with a certain dignity, really taking your space. I have the right to be here. And you bring yourself along. But there is also a gentleness in that posture, a kindness. So it's not like a tough military posture. It's alive and gentle, and yet confident. And if you like, you can close your eyes. And you allow the shift to happen into present moment awareness. From the head into the body. And just checking in. Befriending your own energy and just noticing what you bring with you into this moment. The thoughts and the feelings, your mood, the surroundings you're in. And just noticing what is here. And stepping right into it. The breath is an ally. With awareness and breath, you touch and hold what is in your belly, in your hands. And maybe with the out breath, there can be a sense of softening, of opening. Letting go of the control freak. As if you give yourself a big hug with awareness and breath, with presence and breath. And nothing is excluded. So this moment is what it is. And just acknowledge that everything else is thought. Past is thought, future is thought. The challenges in your life, they right now exist in thoughts. But what is here? What is real? Obviously, thoughts continue to arise, but they are just recognized. Okay, that's a thought. That's a thought. And you return to the aliveness of this moment, to the breath, to the flow of energies in your body. And maybe you can allow yourself to rest in the midst of the present moment. Not adding, not taking away, just resting, just being present effortlessly. Without words. And we can appreciate that we are here together in our virtual temple, that we're breathing together, that we are present to the human experience together. And sliding back, dropping back into the trunk of your body. And then something opens up. With us in our virtual temple is the presence of His Holiness the Dalai Lama and Lama Zopa Rinpoche, the Buddha. But you can also call upon all your guardian angels, tantric angels. And let's bathe together in our refuge field with your whole body, as if you're bathing in the sun. And allow the sensations, the energies in your body to flow where they want to flow. Everything is held and bathed in loving presence and loving awareness. And just recognizing thoughts as thoughts. Maybe you can sense that there's a you which does not depend on thoughts. Something which is bigger than this body and your stories and words. So who are you without referring to thoughts? Who are you without referring to memory, to names and mental images? Thoughts come and go and feelings come and go, but you remain. So you rest as that you. And allow the space to be impregnated by the presence of essence love, the presence of the awakened, the presence of all the gurus, which is your own nature. And just resting. Yes, and then you take your time to open your eyes. Feeling into this meeting with your whole being, with your whole body. So let's look at the text. So we are in verse 12, which is the first one of 6 around the practice of Lojong. And maybe this particular scenario is not present for you, but the principles how to work with these scenarios is applicable to other scenarios which trigger you, which push your buttons. And for sure it's going to happen. So that someone steals something from us, that we lose things. And I mean, many of us, we have heard these teachings before, but it's really important to be reminded again and again, because since it's going to happen, that that we actually, in a moment like this, when this scenario happens, that we take it as a practice opportunity, that we are really serious about this, that we create right now a strong intention that if someone steals something from us, hey, that's a mindfulness spell. That's a call to awaken to this practice. So Tongme Sangpo says, even if someone driven by desperate want, so even if someone driven by desperate want steals or makes someone else steal everything you own. So he's, as always, very radical. Yeah, so he doesn't say if someone steals your bike or your car or your iPhone, everything. Yeah, so everything. So let's prepare for that. Dedicate to him your body, your wealth, and all the good you have ever done or will do. This is the practice of a bodhisattva. Of course, this sounds really crazy, but let's try to be inspired by it. Yeah. And while I was reading this verse, I remembered a story which I want to read to you. And that is from a book about Dipa Ma. So she is a liberated teacher. She had the opportunity to be trained in Burma and then moved to India. And she started to teach, and she's one of the teachers of Jack Cornfield and Sharon Salzberg. And she came to the United States twice and gave teachings there. And there's a nice little book. It's called Dipa Ma by someone called Amy Schmidt, where there's a bit of a biography, but it's mainly just little stories from students, how it was with her, to interact with her in daily life. So I would like to read the story to you. So this is a student of Dipa Ma. For a couple of years, it seemed that whenever I visited New York City, so that fits, I visited New York City, my car would get broken into and my radio ripped off. In Copenhagen, that's the bikes. Yeah, so I myself also got 2 bikes stolen in Copenhagen. Yeah, there's actually like people with trucks from Eastern European countries who drive to Copenhagen and they load in the bikes. Yeah, so I had been invited to a friend's wedding in Queens. Yeah, I think Jennifer just mentioned Queens. I have no idea what that is, but it's a part of Copenhagen, of New York, I guess. I have been invited to a friend's wedding to Queens. I told Dipa Ma that I was thinking of taking the train because my radio always gets stolen. Don't be silly, she said. Go by car. So we ended up taking the car, which by that time had a security system installed in it. We parked the car and went to the wedding. When we came out, sure enough, my car had been broken into yet again. This time they took not only the radio, but all my tapes too. When I got back, I walked into the house and Deepa Ma asked, how was the wedding? The wedding was great, I said, but my car got broken into again and the radio was stolen. I'm really upset. Yeah. So that's, I guess, the natural instinctive reaction we all experience when something is stolen. Deepa Ma just burst out laughing. What's so funny? You must have been a thief in your former lifetime. How many more times do you think you will need to have your radio stolen? You tell me, I demanded. How many more times? Tell me so I can be prepared. Ignoring my question, she asked, what did you do? What was your reaction when the car was broken into? Yeah, so what was your reaction when the car was broken into? Yeah. So first she says to him, hey, what is happening in your life is actually an expression of your karma. It's a kind of feedback. Yeah, it points to where you're stuck. It points to, so what is happening in your life, it points to where there is room for healing, room for growth. Yeah. It's not happening out of chance. Yeah. The situations in our life, they, from the karmic point of view, they're a reflection of our inner life. And everything what happens in our life is a feedback, is a karmic feedback. So what was your reaction when the car was broken into? I was really angry because it happened so many times. And I thought I had a security system. She looked at me in amazement. You mean you didn't think about the man who took your radio, how sad his life must be? She closed her eyes and started chanting quietly to herself. And I knew she was saying metta, loving kindness blessings, for the thief. It was a wonderful lesson to me. So that's Lojong. This reminds me of something which happened to me when I was a monk in Nalanda. Someone broke into the monastery and stole our money from a drawer. And yeah, my response was unawakened and angry and self-righteous. And so I went to the Tibetan teacher who was there, who is now the abbot of Nalanda, Geshe Jampal. And in the morning, it was in the morning when I discovered. So I went into his room and explained what has happened, and I was really upset. And his response was to call all the monks together to do a Tara puja for the thief, because we had to offer this money to the thief, because it was such a bad karma for that person to steal from a monastery, and we had to help the thief. So we were doing the Tara Puja, offering the money to the thief, so that it was not stolen. Yeah. So that's one thing in the Lojong teachings. First, the understanding of emptiness, that the situations don't have meaning from their own side. We make it into what it is for us through our projections, through our meaning giving, through our attitude. And that's, of course, very empowering news, because that is something we can change. That's something we can work on. And the other important puzzle here is the teachings on karma. Yeah? That whatever is happening in our life is a reflection of how we treated other people in the past. Yeah? So that's why Dipa Ma said, you must have been a thief. So situations like this is always an invitation for us to check. So where's the thieving happening in me? Even in small things. Unfortunately, what we instinctively do through our habit is we respond to a situation like this based on the patterns, on the conditioning which caused the karma in the past. So if someone steals from us, we respond with anger or being more protective, being less generous, becoming more stingy. And that's exactly the pattern which called the thief into our life. So the counter-instinctual response, which would liberate us from that kind of experience, is actually generosity. Yeah, because generosity is the antidote towards stealing. So if we would, so in this situation with Dipa Ma, the anger of that person and the self-righteousness in that, how can someone do that? You know, how horrible that is. And seeing this person as a inherently bad person, not seeing the suffering of the person, that is actually what would cause more thief in the life of this person. So if you want to call more thieves into your life, you just need to be angry with the ones who are right there now and judge them and be self-righteous and feel that you are better than them. That kind of thieving, that kind of stealing doesn't exist as a condition in me, it's in others. You know, they are the bad people. So that response from a karmic point of view is actually the cause for calling more thieves into your life. So with her suggestion, that's exactly the suggestion which would break that conditioning, which would change. So we change the world we live in through that kind of inner work. Because there is no independent outside world there, independent from our projections independent from our karma. So it is really self-empowering. So one of the natural reactions to situations like this, and also to the other 5 situations, is anger. I mean, there could be all other kinds of emotional reactions to this scenario, but very likely one of them is anger. So I want to just reflect a bit on anger. And as I said before the meditation, it seems that anger in general has a very bad reputation, which probably for us is not the most healthy, because I guess what many of us rather need to learn is to start to distinguish between the afflicted aspect of anger, the pleasure aspect of anger, and the healthy aspect of anger. So to kind of contemplate the possibility of a healthy aggression. So what is healthy aggression? And what is in anger which is creating unnecessary suffering? Anger which is self-righteous, full of hatred, and wants to harm. So the wisdom aspect in the tantric teachings of anger is clarity. And I think we can all kind of connect with that, what that means. Yeah, so there is a clarity in anger. Someone has crossed our boundaries and we know it. And there is something very confirming and powerful in anger. Something which makes us to speak up for others and for ourselves. So in the tantric teachings, we try to utilize the energy and the clarity in anger. So I found it helpful to contemplate 4 skills regarding working with anger. And these 4 skills are, and I will explain them: anger in, anger out, mindful anger, and heartful anger. So heartful anger would be the Bodhisattva anger. So heartful anger would be the sacred wrath of, of the deities. You have this Tibetan, in the Tibetan iconography, you have the wrathful deities with flames and swords, and and that is a manifestation, an embodiment of anger, of the energy of anger and the clarity of anger, where you don't lose the connection with your heart, where you don't lose the connection with love. Yeah, so that, of course, is an ideal, like a compass. But on the other hand, I think we have situations like that. For example, if you're a parent, yeah, so probably you have had many situations where your boundary setting appeared to the outside quite wrathful and firm, but you didn't lose the connection with your heart. Actually, that kind of boundary setting was an expression of the love and care you have for the child. And then probably you have failed in that a lot. So instead of reacting from that place, you slipped into being a teenager yourself, and or a 5-year-old boy or something like that. So that's then the moments where after, when that energy is past, you regret what you have said and what you did, and you need to kind of, you want to apologize, or you think like, oh, I wouldn't, that was a mistake. I didn't want to say it like this. Yeah. But whereas if you stayed connected with your heart and there was this clarity, these are the moments where it just feels right. And that boundary setting and that firmness, and you know it after, that was actually appropriate and it was a good thing to do. And it helped everyone. It helped the situation, it helped your child, and it created a situation which doesn't need to be fixing afterwards, doesn't need any fixing, doesn't need any going back. So that's heart anger. And if you ever have been close to a Tibetan master, even those who initially appear as this really soft and kind and really like everyone loves them and they forgive everything and things like that. But if you get close to a master like that, you will also notice that side, yeah, that wrath, that that firmness, yeah. So once they feel that the bond, that you're not running away, yeah, so that the bond is set and that you will stay, probably you will also experience that side, yeah, which is for sure unpleasant, but obviously very, very helpful. So in order to build up to this awakened anger, to this heart anger, there could be like three skills which we can cultivate or train. So the first one is anger in. So anger in is the most immature, yeah, but nevertheless, particularly if you are a grenade, you know, like someone who just, you get triggered and you just explode, and whoever is around, even if it's not the person who triggered you, it gets that anger. So anger in is the practice of becoming familiar with that grenade aspect of you, getting to know it, and learning to pause. And this is very difficult, very difficult. It's kind of time out. Yeah. So in daily life, that could be little things, like you get an email from someone who triggers you and you are someone who explodes and you just, boom, shoot back. Yeah. So to take these moments as a mindfulness bell to pause, to breathe, to feel, to be in the energy without expressing it. So in this practice, it's a bit of a suppressing, yeah. So kind of yeah. So I said it's immature, yeah, but it is just avoiding harm, yeah? And doing whatever you need to do to not jump on the train of your reactivity, and kind of hold the energy inside. Now, Shantideva, he has this many verses in the patience chapter where he describes the different scenarios, and the verses end with and then you become like a log of wood. Yeah, you pause. So the second skill is anger out. And that is actually, so some of us are much too good in anger in. Yeah, so some of us need to forget about anger in because we are too good at it, and it leads to high blood pressure and problems in the stomach and psychological problems, and it leads into depression because when we suppress anger, we suppress a big part of our vitality. So depression often is connected with, or so-called depression is often connected with suppressed anger. And some of us have grown up in families where anger was not allowed. So we actually we are afraid of that energy. We don't know it. We might have even be so good in anger in that we don't feel it anymore. Yeah, that we don't know what it is. We get afraid. So anger out. So anger out is that skill that, or that capacity to be able to express your anger unfiltered. So, and obviously that the place to train that, to explore that, is not your marriage. Yeah, so it's not the actual person, but to create situations, maybe on your own, or maybe with a good friend, or in a workshop where this is being explored, where you just get to know the energy unfiltered, where you really know, one teacher calls it conscious rant. So you create a situation where you express and feel the power in anger. It's beautiful. Yeah, if it's not directed to the person who said something to you. So that's so important, because often our anger in, if that is like the kind of baseline, the anger in, that anger in is just based on a fear, on fear of feeling that energy, feeling that aliveness, feeling the power in anger. So the third, and now we go into the kind of practice environment, is mindful anger. So mindful anger is the practice of neither suppressing the anger nor living it out. So it is an inner expression of anger. So you are able to pause, like in anger in. So there is no expression, outside expression, there's no activity. But different than in anger in, you are able to really give space to the energy of anger. So you don't deny it, you don't pretend it's not there, but you through mindfulness practice, you are in touch with the sensations of the anger in your body, and you are able to breathe with it. You are able to feel it. You are able to allow it to be in your body, but you don't spit it out. You don't Yeah, because you are able to hold it, you are able to feel it. So what mindful anger does is that we don't disconnect from the energy, from the clarity aspect of anger. So we are still aware that a boundary was crossed. We receive that information. We still know something needs to be done, something needs to be said, a boundary needs to be set. So we receive the gifts of anger, but we don't ride on our reactivity in our expression. So what happens in mindful anger is that we become aware of the underlying feelings in anger. So anger is often like an emotion which covers up underlying feelings. And the underlying feeling in anger could be, for example, helplessness, vulnerability, not knowing, feeling lost, sadness. So mindful anger gives us the opportunity to address those, to direct our loving attention to the underlying emotions beneath anger. Yeah, and then the fourth heart anger. Yeah, it's something to I don't know if you can feel the possibility of that. It's like more an open-ended question. How can I be in my heart and really see still the person who stole from me and see the suffering of that person? And wish that person well and cross the boundary between me, who is the good person, the victim, and the person who has stolen. Really being able to walk in the shoes of the thief and directing your love, your compassion to the hurt in yourself and in the thief. And still install a security system or go to court or whatever is necessary. So it's not like it's not an invitation in being passive but when you manage to stay connected with your heart, what you say and what you do will be much more wholesome, much more creative, much more just kind, with less suffering for yourself and the whole situation. So it's not that you're with the practice of heart anger that your common sense goes down the drain. It's actually maybe more intelligent. So next time, when a situation similar to this scenario happens, let's place an intention in us, to remember the teachings of Tongme Sangpo. And in his commentary, Ken MacLeod, very beautifully describes how a situation like that is an invitation for us to slow down and feel our feelings, go into the body, pause. And he says, go to the edge of what you can experience and not be consumed, and rest right there. So go to the edge. Yeah. So we go to the edge of whatever, he describes the scenario. You come home and someone broke into your home and stole everything. So imagine that situation, and maybe some of you have been in that situation. And since you are in New York, maybe it's likely to happen. So go to the edge of what you can experience. And maybe we can separate from this scenario, because maybe tomorrow something else and not in this category happens. Maybe someone criticizes you, or something happens which is not what you want to happen. So the practice instruction here is, in that moment, to pause and to feel what you feel, not to deny it, not to gloss it over, not to move into activity immediately, but to take that moment to feel what you feel. Helplessness, despair, anger, rage, feeling unsafe. Yeah. So that's what happens when someone breaks into your flat. You feel unsafe. Yeah? So you shift into pausing and feeling it. And you go to the edge where, if you would go further, you would become overwhelmed. You would drown in that feeling. So, and that is one of the skills we explore in meditation. So how close and how intimate can I become with my experience without getting lost in it? So neither too far nor too close. What is that edge? And that is something one needs to explore in meditation. Initially, we might not even have a sense that it is possible to step out of the turmoil and being the container, being the loving witness. That's quite an awakening, yeah, to be able to do that, to have a genuine experience that I'm bigger than my feelings and I'm able to hold whatever I feel. I can be with that. Feelings are not dangerous. One of the important ingredients of that is the curiosity of how does this feel in my body? Where is that in my body? To get to know the energy of my response, of my reactivity in the body. So, and then the next step here in this scenario would be you turn your attention to the person who robbed you. And in our last session, we talked about the practice of Tonglen. So all these verses here in Tonglen Sangpo's text are connected with the practice of Tonglen. So what that means is that you turn your attention to the person who robbed you, or who said that horrible thing, or was treating you in an abusive way, or whatever. So you turn to that person, and you walk in the shoes of that person. You connect with the suffering of that person, and if you want to make it into a more of a Tonglen practice, you actually breathe that in. Yeah, you take it in. And then with the out breath, you give that person what he or she needs. In the case of that situation in the monastery, I told you, so we connected with the thief, and we made the offering to the thief, and we wished that person to be well. You know, may you be happy. May you use the money for something beneficial for yourself, and may you awaken to your goodness. And then Ken MacLeod concludes this practice with this quote: if you practice this long enough, you begin to see that it is all like a dream. You see how the stories you use to give your life structure, this is mine, this is yours, yours, mine, mine, yours, seduce you into an illusion, the illusion of ownership. As you wake up to the understanding that all these notions about life are nothing but mist and smoke. So if you become aware of that, So you become aware that this notion that your shirt you're wearing right now is mine is actually a dream. It's not mine. You temporarily have it. You're temporarily wearing it, but tomorrow maybe your kids needs to throw it away, or they wear it themselves. They call it mine. Yeah? So you start to see that mine, me, and you, and my possession, that is made up. That this sense of separation is illusionary. It's like a dream. We don't own anything. We are temporary users. So when you become aware of that, you feel both a tremendous loss and a great relief. A tremendous loss and a great relief. So there is actually a sense of loss if the sense of me and mine starts to relax. There might be some grief, but at the same time, it is a big relief. You also feel an infinite compassion for those who are caught in the dream and cannot see beyond it. You also feel an infinite compassion for those who are caught in the dream and cannot see beyond it. So this is what is called great compassion. So it is a compassion which is based on the wisdom of emptiness. So infinite compassion for those who are caught in the dream and cannot see beyond it. So the wisdom of emptiness doesn't lead us into a state of indifference, but it enhances our compassion because we start to see that suffering is based on a mistake. Suffering is based on a distortion of reality. So the thief is confused, just like us. And the thief steals because, from his point of view, he's looking for happiness in it. And all he creates is suffering for himself and others. Yes, so is there anything you want to add or ask or?
I was going to share something that came to mind.
Yeah.
Doing this talk, I was recently engaging with a family member who can be manipulative, and she reacted to something very simple that I said in an effort to kind of set a boundary with just a lot of rage. And I offered an apology and invited a live conversation to talk about it. And she declined. And before that, I noticed like, and I can actually feel the trembling coming back in my body. And I was just feeling into that. And I was feeling angry, and I was feeling kind of unsafe and misunderstood. and my partner and I were talking about it. And in my next kind of personal practice session, I just went into compassion practice for this family member. And I remember just thinking, like, I'm pretty sure this is like the work, to not kind of perpetuate that and go back and forth, and to just offer compassion. And so that was coming up for me as you were talking about this situation. And I still feel compassion, kind of thinking about like that second arrow that she's shooting into herself and trying to make this a bigger thing, and just really having compassion and holding the suffering that she was creating for herself.
Yes. And have you met her after?
No, she's not we're not willing to engage. So I'm kind of just without expectation, just going to trust that if that opportunity arises, that I can be there with some firmness and some love.
Yes, right.
And I did a lot of kind of journaling and writing practice, just to kind of prepare myself for what I would say and how to be skillful in trying to repair. Because the last I left it is, how can I repair this rupture, even though I felt like I was kind of swallowing my own pride in a way, and just recognizing like that my intention really is to reconcile and to see how I can make this better, while also recognizing that there's some manipulation at play too. So not wanting to be walked on either.
Yeah. Yes. Nice, this what you said about firmness and love. Yeah, so that's the heart anger I refer to, firmness and love. And sometimes what happens when we do that kind of inner work, that's why I ask you, did you see her after that? Sometimes what happens is, when we change our inner world, that somehow outside there's also a change in that person. But sometimes not. Sometimes that person then disappears. Yeah, and that's also okay.
I'm not tied to an outcome. Hoping for the best. Yeah.
But whatever the outcome is on the relationship, for sure, what your approach made it less suffering for you. So that's already a lot. Yeah. So it's sometimes just not happening that it leads to an outside reconciliation or an outside forgiving, but inside there can be more space and more better sleep. So someone else.
Stephan, there's a question. Someone said, is there any reference you could recommend to more deeply explore the practical side of such exchanges?
Of what?
Is there any reference you could recommend to more deeply explore the practical side of such exchanges?
Of exchanges.
Exchanges.
Yeah. Regarding anger or
Stephan, regarding what Jason was just talking about, how to apply the magic to situations when they're happening in the life.
Yeah, I mean, one resource is the commentary of Ken McLeod. So in his commentary, he describes a kind of like practical step-by-step kind of approach to situations like this. And there will be other inspirations in the other verses. And this me talking about these 4 skills regarding anger. I got that from a spiritual teacher called Robert Augustus Masters. And if you also Google his name and heart anger or how to work with anger, he has an article on his website where he describes also the practice of what I mentioned, conscious rant. Yeah. And where you also find this view on anger as a potential ally. Yeah. So this is one of the, I think this is probably the one point I would like to inspire all of us to, even if it's not really clear right now how to do it, but at least to consider that anger is a potential ally, and that the solution is not to oppose anger or call anger a mental poison or an affliction we need to get rid of or something like that, but to consider the possibility that there is a wisdom aspect. So this approach of the tantric approach of transformation you find in the teachings on the 5 Buddha families. And one teacher who works with that is Lama Tsultrim Malyone. Yeah, so that's the 5 Buddha families. There's other people who work with that. So there one could explore a bit more deeper this process of transformation instead of antidotes. Saying that, it's also, anger in has also its value. Yeah, so kind of the Sutrayana approach to anger, it has its place, but it's not a real medicine. It's not really. It's just a temporary practice to avoid harming others. Yeah, but it's not really sustainable. It's unhealthy, actually. It leads into physical and emotional problems. It's also interesting to acknowledge the families we are coming from, but also the cultures. Like, because I have been a lot in Spain, in Barcelona, and yeah, it's interesting to see how the relationship to anger in Latin cultures is very different compared to Scandinavian cultures. So like a person grew up in Spain maybe doesn't need to learn anger out, because I know that's so, because they are not so afraid of that. Yeah, I mean, if you are in Barcelona and you know you see people shouting at each other, and you think, oh shit, what I have to call the police or something, you know, but they are just discussing what is for dinner. Yeah, it's like and for a Scandinavian person, that's like really scary and impossible. And yeah, so, but I think for many of us, at least here in Scandinavia, so I don't know different American cultures so much, but definitely here in Scandinavia, people are more in the category of learning to practice anger out, because it doesn't have any place in this culture. It all needs to be like emotions needs to, here you learn to express suppress feelings, particular anger. Anger is like a no-go. I mean, even like me as a German, it's sometimes, I mean, I dislike meetings here in Scandinavia because nobody really says what he thinks and nobody expresses what's going on. Is also polite and kind, and so even myself, I'm a rather very quiet person. You know, sometimes people feel I'm too direct, or you know, too German. And I know that many Latin people who live in Copenhagen, that they really suffer from that, and you know, it can lead into a depression and a disconnection from their vitality. So it's not only the lack of sun here in the north, it's also that they don't have space for expressing their aliveness and their emotions, because the people around them can't handle it, or they see it as wrong. So if you're open to that possibility that anger has a wisdom aspect and a vitality, actually, in these times, particularly in these times, we need more anger, not less. Because it's not enough to kind of bow and say, oh, please, could you stop this or something. We need more anger, but I'm not talking about hatred or a sense of superiority or a sense of separation, but we need more people shouting. While they stay connected with their heart, and while what they shout against, while they don't separate from that or judge that or hate that. Okay, so we dedicate the merit, the positive potential of this meeting, awakening of ourselves and all others. And let's particularly think about people in power, stupid people in power. May they awaken to their goodness. May they awaken to the love they also carry in their heart. They do, just like us. So may they awaken to their Buddha nature. Thank you very much for your presence, for your attention, for meditating together. And yeah, I hope to see you tomorrow. We will go into verse 13 then. Let's see. And yeah, take care.
Thank you, Stephan.
I hope you have some challenges today.
Thank you so much.
Can play. See you tomorrow. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Stephan.
Stephan.
Thank you, everybody. See you all tomorrow.
Yes.